The fluorescent lights of the office flickered slightly, casting an eerie glow over the cubicles. I was typing away at my desk, the soft hum of computers and occasional chatter filling the air. That's when Jake, a colleague known for his boisterous laughter and questionable humor, approached me. His footsteps echoed louder as he neared, a grin plastered on his face. "Hey, check this out," Jake said, pulling out his phone and then a series of printed photos from his pocket. He spread them out on my desk with a smirk. "Look at the chick I'm having fun with now, while her stupid husband thinks she's faithful to him." My heart sank as my eyes scanned the intimate photos. There she was, my wife, Emily. The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment. Anger, betrayal, and shock twisted inside me, a toxic cocktail that threatened to overflow. Yet, I couldn't let Jake see how his words had cut me. My voice was steady but cold. "You think this is funny?" Jake's grin faltered, confusion etching his features. "Wait, you don't know her, do you?" The audacity of his ignorance fueled my resolve. "That chick is my wife, Jake." The silence that followed was deafening. His face drained of color, the realization hitting him like a ton of bricks. I didn't wait for his response. Fury propelled me from my chair, storming out of the office with a single purpose. The drive home was a blur, my mind replaying the confrontation and those damning photos over and over. When I arrived, I found their cars parked outside. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I quietly let myself in. The sounds of laughter and soft music led me to them, entwined in an embrace that shattered the last of my restraint. The world seemed to move in slow motion as I stepped forward, their shocked faces turning to me. The scene before me was like a grotesque parody of my worst fears come to life. Emily's pleas and Jake's attempts at explanation were mere background noise to the roaring in my ears. I didn't listen. My response was swift and severe. Not violence, but a calculated revenge that would hit them where it hurt most. I had secrets of my own, leverage that could ruin them both professionally and personally. By the time I was done, they would wish they had never crossed me. As I left them there, scrambling to cover their tracks and salvage what they could, I couldn't help but feel a bitter satisfaction. The first chapter of my retaliation was complete, but the story was far from over. The real intrigue and unfolding of my elaborate plan would take place in the chapters to come. They had underestimated me, but they would soon learn just how harshly I retaliate. After the confrontation, I found solace in solitude, barricading myself in the dimly lit confines of my home. The shadows seemed to whisper secrets, fueling my resolve for what came next. I wasn't just going to sit back and let them destroy my life without a fight. No, I had plans that required allies. My first ally was an unexpected one. Lisa, Jake's ex-wife. I remembered her mentioning his infidelities at a company gathering once, her eyes sparking with a mixture of anger and sadness. If anyone would understand my thirst for revenge, it would be her. I reached out, and we met at a quiet cafe, the buzz of hushed conversations around us. Lisa's eyes widened in shock as I recounted my discovery, the intimate photos, and my confrontation. Her initial surprise quickly turned to a fiery determination. "What do you need from me?" she asked, her voice low but fierce. Together we hatched a plan. Lisa still had access to Jake's financial accounts and knew secrets that could unravel him. But we needed more. We needed inside information from the office. Enter Mark, a colleague who had always been kind but stayed on the sidelines. He had seen the unraveling at the office and, after learning about my plight, offered his help. "I can keep an eye on things here. Let you know if Jake or Emily try to spin this narrative against you," he whispered during a clandestine meeting in the storage room. Armed with inside information from Mark and financial leverage from Lisa, I started my campaign. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, making sure they couldn't do this to anyone else. The trio we formed was unlikely, but our combined efforts were potent. We began by leaking anonymous tips to the company's HR, hinting at Jake's inappropriate behavior and questionable ethics. Simultaneously, Lisa started to tighten the financial noose around Jake, cutting off his access to certain assets and funds. As for Emily, I had something special in mind for her, a revelation that would shake her to her core and expose her duplicity to those she valued most. The office buzzed with rumors and speculation as Jake and Emily found themselves increasingly isolated. Their attempts to counter the allegations only entangled them further in a web of lies and deceit. As I watched from the shadows, orchestrating the downfall of those who had wronged me, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. This wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was the hand I had been dealt, and I was going to play it to the best of my ability. The aftermath of our initial strikes against Jake and Emily had set the office abuzz. Whispers flitted through the air like charged particles, electrifying the atmosphere with scandal and speculation. But amidst the chaos, I remained the eye of the storm, calm, collected, and relentlessly driven by the thirst for justice. I leaned on my desk, surveying the office landscape with a keen eye. Mark slipped a note onto my desk as he passed by, a silent update on the enemy's morale. The note read, "They're planning something. Be careful." His warning sent a shiver down my spine, but it also steeled my resolve. I wouldn't be intimidated or deterred. Later that day, Emily cornered me in the break room, her eyes flashing with a mixture of defiance and desperation. "You think you've won, but this isn't over," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper. I met her gaze squarely, my voice unwavering. "You brought this on yourself, Emily. You could have chosen honesty. Instead, you chose betrayal." She scoffed, turning on her heel and storming out, but her words lingered in the air, a reminder that the battle was far from over. That evening Lisa, Mark, and I convened in my living room, a makeshift war room littered with papers and open laptops. Lisa's latest discovery was a game changer. A series of emails that not only implicated Jake in unethical business practices, but also suggested Emily's involvement. "We need to take this to the board," Lisa stated, her finger hovering over the print button. "This will destroy them." Mark nodded in agreement, but his eyes were troubled. "We have to be careful. They know we're onto them, and they'll be looking to retaliate." I pondered our next move, the weight of our decisions heavy on my shoulders. "We'll proceed with caution," I decided, "but we're not backing down. This ends with them facing the consequences of their actions." The next morning, armed with our damning evidence, we made our way to the boardroom. The atmosphere was charged with tension as we laid out our case, the board members' expressions shifting from skepticism to horror as the depth of Jake and Emily's deceit became apparent. As we exited the boardroom, a palpable sense of victory washed over us, but the look I shared with Lisa and Mark spoke volumes. This victory was bittersweet. We had exposed the truth, but at what cost? The intrigue of our plot had reached its climax, but the reverberations of our actions would be felt for a long time to come. As I walked back to my desk, the office's murmured conversations felt like a distant echo. I had set out to right a wrong, and in doing so, I had changed the course of our lives forever. The days following our boardroom exposé were fraught with tension and uncertainty. The office felt like a battleground, with alliances shifting and whispers echoing through the halls. Jake and Emily were suspended pending a full investigation, their futures hanging in the balance. But as the dust began to settle, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, secrets still buried deep, waiting to be unearthed. My suspicions were confirmed when I received an anonymous email late one night. The message was cryptic, but clear. "Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th. There's more to this tale." My heart raced as I pondered the risks, but the thirst for truth drove me forward. Under the cloak of darkness, I made my way to the warehouse, the echo of my footsteps a constant companion. Inside, I found not a foe, but a friend. Mark, his face etched with worry. "I'm sorry for the secrecy," he began, his voice low. "But what I've discovered changes everything." He then recounted a tale of corporate espionage, a rival company's attempt to infiltrate and destabilize ours through Jake and Emily. Their indiscretions were not just personal failings but part of a larger scheme to sow discord and gather confidential information. I was stunned. "So they were used as pawns?" Mark nodded solemnly. "They made their choices, yes, but they were manipulated into doing much worse. This goes beyond personal vendettas. It's about protecting our company now." The revelation shifted my perspective entirely. Our personal grievances paled in comparison to the threat looming over us all. With a newfound purpose, we gathered our evidence and prepared to confront the true enemy. The following day, with the full backing of our company's leadership, we unveiled the depth of the conspiracy. The rival company's tactics were laid bare, their attempts at subterfuge exposed for all to see. It was a decisive victory, one that safeguarded our company's future and integrity. In the aftermath, I found myself face to face with Emily and Jake. The animosity that once defined our interactions had faded, replaced by a mutual understanding of the pawns we had all been in a much larger game. We have a lot to atone for, Emily admitted, her gaze steady. But I'm grateful for the chance to make things right. Jake nodded in agreement, a silent vow to rebuild from the ashes of our shared turmoil. As I walked away from that final confrontation, the warehouse looming behind us like a silent witness to our turmoil, I realized that the end of our story was not about vengeance or victory. It was about revelation and reckoning, about finding the truth in a maze of deception. The intrigue that had enveloped our lives had unraveled, leaving us with the stark reality of our choices and the paths ahead. We had all been tested, but in the end, it was the truth that set us free, free to rebuild, to forgive, and to move forward into an uncertain but hopeful future.